The Demolition theme song. It's such a huge part of you know, who you guys are, the team, the status. But it wasn't, you didn't originally used to come out to that. So when you first heard that, what did you think?
Well, Jimmy Hart presented it to us when we were in the Madison Square Garden, and it fit the character to a T. Hard driving, no mess. When the music started, I think the people knew that something was going to happen, and somebody's going to get their ass kicked.
And we didn't know what it was going to sound like either until it came to that night when we heard the music coming out, and it was huge.
Wonderful, wonderful. Barry, not to make you feel inconvenient, but you, for a lot of the guys out there may not know, you weren't originally the first incantation of Demolition, were you? So a gentleman called Randy Colley, many of you will know him more as Moondog Rex. But Bill, that didn't quite work out. Why exactly was that?
Well, everybody recognized him, and he had great success as the Moondogs. And I knew the character was going to work. It just wasn't going to work if they knew who he was. And they had no reference point to me. And of course, Barry was a fresh face.
And I didn't know anything about this because I was wrestling in Crockett's territory down south. So when Vince called me up and wanted me in that position, I didn't know that it didn't work the first time with Randy.
And speaking of things that didn't quite work when you guys first got introduced, a big problem for some fans, and perhaps for the WWF at the time, was that you guys just became too popular, you know, and perhaps people were seeing you a little bit as sort of faces and crowd favourites. So the WWF decided to introduce Mr. Fuji into the mix. And what did that add to the whole Demolition setup?
Well, Fuji was instrumental. He was a legitimate manager. I mean, he would critique the matches. He'd tell us what not to do, maybe what to add. So he was an integral part.
Yeah, and the fans loved it when we went out there and beat everybody up, and it was almost like they were ready to cheer us. So we had to change with Mr. Fuji, and he was so vicious and he was a heel, he really made us a heel.
Yeah, and a lot of people may also not know Mr. Fuji, a long and illustrious history in tag team wrestling himself, hasn't he?
Yeah, he was very successful. And of course, he had other teams before us, and he dropped them and just solely worked on with us. And then he got our not so good friends, the Powers of Pain, after that.
And he wasn't just a manager for us to the ring. We traveled with him, and he talked to us about our matches and everything. So he was really a major part of what we did in the ring. If something looked good or didn't look good, he would tell us.
Wonderful. Now, you mentioned then about other teams. Just thinking about some of the other teams that were there when you guys were there, thinking about the likes of, you mentioned the Powers of Pain, you've also got teams like the Rockers, Strike Force, Brainbusters, the Killer Bees, teams like that, the Heart Foundation, teams like that. It is, without doubt, the greatest period of tag team wrestling that the industry has ever seen. And you guys were at the top of that. You guys were the measuring bar for that for many, many years. How did that feel?
Well, you forgot one team, the British Bulldogs.
We did forget the British Bulldogs.
How do you forget them?
Yeah, they were a great team. We were fortunate because there were so many great teams at that time. It would be hard to have a bad match.
It was really great to be in that position because every tag team worked differently too. And we ended up being able to work with all these guys, and I think that's why we got the opportunity to be the champions. And we were lucky, and plus, you know, I think we did a good job.
Did a phenomenal job. I'm sure everybody else here agrees.
All right.
Now, you mentioned then about getting to work with some phenomenal names, some phenomenal tag teams. One of those being that you worked with was obviously the team of Andre the Giant and Haku. But obviously yourself, Bill, you had a long history with Andre. Now, one of the things that I found out recently, because obviously one of the big things in wrestling at the moment is all about opening forbidden doors. But going back to 1990, there was the Wrestling Summit, which brought together the best of New Japan, All Japan, and also WWF. And you guys took on Andre the Giant and Giant Baba, is that right?
Yeah.
How did that match come about?
Well, Andre was very, very popular, of course, all over the world, and especially in Japan. And Bubba was owner of one of the companies. So I think that it was Giant Bubba that wanted to work with Andre. And Andre always had a good relationship with us. So we sort of got drafted into that position.
Yeah, and I think they really trusted us too, that we were going to have a good match with them. And to me, that was one of the highlights of my career too, was with the two giants in this business, wrestling them. A lot of fun.
Yeah, and Bill, I think you did yourself a little bit of a disservice there, because it wasn't that Andre liked working with you. Andre thought the world of you, apparently, and you were very good friends, is that right?
Oh, we were good friends. He was a good friend of my wife. He was godfather to both of my daughters.
Wow.
So I knew Andre for many, many years, and I still miss him.
Yeah, completely. Oh. And also, just to check, sorry to just, this may shock a few people, but am I right in believing that you slammed Andre prior to WrestleMania 3?
Yeah, I don't think I was the first one. I think the first person to slam Andre was Don Leo Jonathan in Canada. But I was fortunate enough to work with him so many times. Between Barry and myself in singles, probably 100 matches.
And also yourself, Barry, you've obviously worked with a lot of legends in your career, but you actually grew up with quite a few, didn't you? If I sort of take you back to your school, for instance, you went to school with the likes of Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude. Tell us a little bit about that.
It was quite a crew, you know. Yeah,
it must have been some playground.
Yeah, well, you know, I grew up watching Vern Gagne wrestling and Larry the Axe Hennig, so never thinking I was ever going to get into wrestling. But when I was with Kurt Hennig all the time growing up, we always told him, you got to get in the business, and he didn't want to either. But then finally one day he says, I'm getting in. And once he got in, then all of us kind of followed him and then got in. But it's so hard missing all these guys now that aren't around anymore. They were all really, really good guys.
Guys, Chris, I think it's about time that we invited these wonderful people to ask some questions, isn't it?
It's bloody Demolition. Come on, they're in the ring right now. Who doesn't love the music? Come on, I saw you rocking out to that. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Quick question. You, my friend. You might need to come a little closer and use the stick. What's your name, my friend?
Isaac.
And what's your question for Demolition?
What's the best tag team you've ever won against?
Did you catch that?
Yeah.
What's the best tag team you've ever been against? Go.
I'll tell
We're
you,
asking them, sir.
it might not be the best tag team we've ever gone against, but the tag team that we've never won is our wives.
We'll lose every time.
Every time.
I've no offense to you, sir, but this gentleman's made quite the effort. Lucky you came here today. That'd be weird at McDonald's. What's your name, sir?
My name's John. I just wanted to know, like, who was your favourite opponents to face? Like, because you guys are quite physical. So who were, like, the guys that gave it back equally, physically?
Did you catch that? You were quite physical. Who were your tag teams that you enjoyed? Who gave that physicality back to you?
Well, you know, they all did, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
we used to apologize before the matches, and we told them if it was real bad, we'd pay for the ambulance ride to the hospital.
you know, we were always pretty stiff in the ring, but we liked it when they were stiff back to you too. But we didn't try to hurt anybody. But everybody was great.
I'll tell you who was very physical were the Bulldogs. I mean, they were 3,000 miles a minute, and both of them were very strong. Of course, Andre and Haku, Powers of Pain, you'll see later. I mean, some of those guys you couldn't hurt. We tried, but some of them you couldn't hurt.
And the toughest opponent I ever had was him. When we got in the ring together, he started beating me. I still hurt from that.
At Royal Rumble, we're both feeling the punches from that day.
Yeah.
This gentleman was very enthused. What's your name, my friend?
Rob. I just want to know that, how did it feel when you're just you two as a tag team, and then all of a sudden you become a three, and then ultimately change tag team partners altogether with Crush?
Did you catch that okay? When you were a tag team, but you went to become a three with Crush, what was that like, and what was it like to change over to be yourself and Crush?
Well, that came about my many trips over the years before Demolition as a masked superstar to Japan. And I had consumed a lot of shellfish. So I developed an allergy to shellfish. And before one of the WrestleManias, I had an anaphylactic reaction and went out-of-body experience, nearly died. So they panicked at the office and brought in Crush. Of course, we both liked him. But he was thrust into a position that I don't think he was really ready for. But we give him support, of course.
Yeah, and what was really hard for me was one of my best friends here gets sick, and we can't be partners anymore. And we were just really in the prime of Demolition, and all the matches were already booked ahead of time, so it wasn't like he can just all of a sudden not go to the matches. So that's when they brought Crush in. And it was hard replacing him. You can't. So, we had great matches and everything, but the people just didn't see it like the office wanted to see it. It's hard to take one of us out of the picture. But it ended up working out all right.
I think we've all learned our lesson. Don't trust shellfish. Go ahead, sir. What's your name?
My name's Danny. My question, I suppose, everyone here knows you're one of the best, if not the best of all time. How does it feel today that you're not in the Hall of Fame? Does that bother you, or you're not that bothered?
Well, it would be a nice footnote to be included, but we have no control over that. The nice thing is when we come to events like this, people like you and people that meet us at the table tell us that we belong there. So we know that there's support, but as far, it's all up to one person. Now he's got a mustache.
Kind of looks like he's in a porno flick or something, doesn't
Yeah, it looks like, yeah.
Don't Google that at work. Oh, I'm sorry. It's still early. What's your name, my friend?
My name's Glenn. My question for you, SummerSlam 1990, when you in the 2 out of 3 full match with the Heart Foundation. For me, that is probably one of the greatest tag matches of the Golden Era generation. What was it like for you guys to be in that match, to lose the title and have LOD debut in the event and the overall package of the whole thing itself?
Did you catch that?
Yeah.
I'll repeat it for you.
Yeah.
SummerSlam 90. Have we got any fans of the Heart Foundation and Demolition from SummerSlam 90? Good. You're not so keen, I understand. It was a...
that was one in Madison Square Gardens, correct?
Was it? Yeah.
Okay,
He says
yep.
yeah.
That was great.
What was that match like? What was it like also to lose to the Heart Foundation that night? And also, busy night, what was it like to have the Legion of Doom be part of WWF? There's a lot happening there.
Well, Legion of Doom were friends of ours, Barry much more than myself, but I had known them for a long time. Barry grew up with them, and they were fantastic. What can you say about the Heart Foundation? One of the best teams ever, and Bret himself became the singles champion, so every time you get to go into the ring with them, you enjoyed it. You knew that it was going to be fruitful, it was going to be productive, and you knew you were going to come back and be proud of your match.
And what was great about the Heart Foundation, we wrestled them many times, and it was no problem losing to them in the middle of the ring, because that's just what you do. After everybody works for everybody, everybody gets beat by everybody, it was great to pass them on to them, because they were such a great team. And the Road Warriors, I went to wrestling camp. We started all at the same time. And it was exciting at first that they were coming up to the WWF. But then the way they brought them in, it just like they just put it together and didn't think of, taking their time a year and a half before we even met them. So it was rushed so much that it ended up, I didn't really care for the way they brought them in. And they never did get over big as baby faces, I think, because of that. Because we were baby faces at the time.
Well, I think that they, like Barry said, they rushed the whole program. They saw potential, but they should have waited. But they panicked again a number of times and squeezed everything in. They, not only with us, they did it with the Warrior, they did it with Flair. And
with Hulk.
Hulk. So.
Yeah, when they brought Flair in to go against Hulk, they just threw it together.
Yeah.
And they could have did a long program before they even put them together. So.
Where are you, Chris? I've lost you.
To your right, 4 o'clock. This young gentleman, can you come forward a bit? Step up. Well, obviously, this young man has clear memories of SummerSlam 90. What's your name, my friend?
Rico,
Okay, and what's your question for Demolition?
what was their favourite match?
What was your favourite match?
Well, that'd be very difficult because if you said one, you'd probably be leaving out 15 or 20 extra. But again, Heart Foundations, Strike Force, Colossal Connection, Powers of Pain.
There were so many.
So many good teams.
I know.
British Bulldogs.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite though was Andre and Haku in the Sky Dome in Toronto, and we didn't know that was Andre's last match.
Yeah.
And it was, and that was pretty sad, but it was fun working with your friends like that.
Over here. Here we go, sir. What's your name?
My name's Ross. My question for you today is, when you was the new kids, who helped you in the locker rooms the most?
Did you catch that? When you were the new kids, as the gentleman said, new kids on the block, who were the people that helped you? Who were the veterans that helped lift you up?
Well, the guy that broke me in was one of the Mongols. And not only was he a wrestler, he was a promoter in Pittsburgh and the owner. That's during Bruno Sammartino's time and superstar Billy Graham. And I think even today, all of the veteran wrestlers help out the young guys if they're willing to listen. And they'll usually ask for advice, but sometimes they only want to hear the good things and not the bad. If you tell them something that they shouldn't do, then they think you're an old geezer and you don't know what you're talking about.
Running. Hello, sir. What's your name, my friend?
It's Chris.
Great name. And what's your question?
Thank you. Hi, guys. Good to meet you. Is there any stories from on the road, particularly funny ones that stand out?
Catch that okay? Any stories from the road? Any road trip stories that stand out?
We're not allowed to repeat those because the attorneys for the wives might be here.
Yeah, remember, toughest tag team match. Thank you, George. This gentleman over here. Oh, how many zebras died for that, sir? What's your name, sir?
My name's Royal. We can't go this whole Q&A about talking about the Repo Man by Barry. What's your memories of that, and could it be improved upon at all?
The Repo Man?
Repo Man, yeah, what you thought?
Yeah, of course, my favorite gimmick was the Demolition. And I had quite a few gimmicks, but when I became the Repo Man, I really enjoyed it because it was a character that I had to become. And I've always said in this business, the worst character I ever had was Barry Darsow. I couldn't be myself. So once I became the Repo Man, it really took me out of what I normally was, and I really enjoyed it. I worked with, all the top guys, and had a lot of fun with it.
And I'm not sure if it's the very first episode of Raw, or it's very, very early on when you were running around doing things like stealing Macho Man's hats. You seem to be having a hell of a lot of fun with that.
Well, nobody touched Macho's hat ever. That was like a no-no. So, of course, I have to go right for the hat and took it. So he was really mad at me when I did that. That was a lot of fun. So when he was chasing me, he was really chasing me.
And we can't possibly touch on the Repo Man without mentioning Mr. Hole-in-One. Where on earth did that come from?
Well, I used to be a pretty good golfer when I was a little bit younger. And I was trying to get John Daly to be my manager. And it was kind of all set up for that. And then it kind of, left. But I wanted to get on the circuit with a lot of the celebrity golfers. That's why I wanted to do that. And I had a lot of fun.
Here we are, sir. What's your name, my friend?
Darren. Ribbing and practical jokes are a big part of the wrestling industry. What's the best practical joke or rib you've ever been involved in?
Fuji was the master ribber. We never got involved in any of those because we didn't want it to come back on us. But the British Bulldogs were pretty good ribbers too.
Kurt Hennig was really good.
Kurt
too.
Hennig. But none of them were vicious. They were fun-filled, and to get a ha-ha and a reaction like that. So nobody went in for any vicious, harmful ribs.
Yeah, we pretty much stayed away from all that because we didn't want to get ribbed either.
Here we are. Go ahead. What's your name, my friend?
Hi, I'm John. Quick question. Excluding teams that you worked with, if you could go back to your prime and wrestle one team for a program, who would it be?
Is that all the teams that are now you're talking about, who we'd want to come back to?
Someone you haven't worked with.
I'd like to wrestle Shane and Vince McMahon.
Just Vince. No, there's a lot of good talent. There's a team right here, FTR, that very good. We met the Young Bucks. There's a lot of good talent in the business today, so hats off to them all.
And just to let you into a little bit of a backstage gossip, guys, to explain just how highly these guys are thought of by everybody else in the industry. I sat in the hotel yesterday, and almost exclusively, every time somebody came in off from the airport, they made a beeline for these guys, particularly the Dudley boys. The Dudley boys were like kids in a sweet shop when they saw these gentlemen. That's how highly you guys are thought of.
Well, we love the Dudleys, too. They're great guys.
Yeah, we've been fortunate. I think that this is a great fraternity that we have. As you can see, thousands of people give us respect, and we all are humbled by that. It's nice to see all the guys. You could not see them for 10, 15, sometimes 20 years, and after about 2 or 3 minutes, it's like you were just seeing them yesterday. It's a good fraternity to be in.
Yeah, it's like Kevin Nash and Ted DiBiase and Paige, and I mean, they're all just the greatest guys ever. And it's fun to come here to England, and all of a sudden you see your friends again that you haven't seen in years. And they're just all great guys.
Oh, no, you're too tall. Sit down. What's your name, my friend?
Hi, I'm John. My question is for Barry. What was it like working with Crush at Wembley Stadium for SummerSlam 92, the ex-Demolition tag partners going against each other?
That was a lot of fun because, being partners with them, we ended up becoming very good friends. And Wembley Stadium, I don't know how many people were there. It was huge. 85,000 people. It was a lot of fun. And I told Crush, I said, Crush, press me above your head. And we never talked about it or anything, but he did it in the ring. And he looked at me, he goes, I can't press you. I said, just do it. He put me up like I was nothing. And it was a lot of fun wrestling Crush.
And just talking about things that were a lot of fun, Bill, a film that many people in this audience will know is the No Holds Bars and Tiny Lister smash hit. You were in that as well. How did you come to be in that film?
Well, originally it was going to be Barry. And I was very happy it was going to be him, because that meant I was going to have 2 days off. And then a couple days later, Hogan came to me and said, "You're going to be in it." And then he's happy because he's got 2 days off. So we went out to Topeka, Kansas. They had a ring set up and all the people in the arena. We did a 10-minute match. One take. We're done. And the director said, "That's perfect." He said, "What do we do now?" Hogan said, "We go home."
It's a tough day at the office. Any more questions for Axe and Smash and Demolition? Oh, you've got one. You don't. There's conflict. You'll say it for her. You two need to work your issues out at another time, but here we go.
My partner Shelley wants to know what you did with the studded leather masks.
Apparently, this gentleman's partner, Shelley, she wants to know, what did you guys do with those studded leather masks?
My daughter has mine, kept for her my 2 grandsons. And it's ironic you ask that because there's a vendor that we work with in the United States that they're making them for people to purchase. And they had, we were in Indianapolis about
3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago, and they had 15 of them. As soon as they put them on the table, they were gone.
Every wife from everywhere came to get those masks. Yeah. So you'll have to order them.
You're bringing people together. You can't beat your own wives in a tag team match, but you can help them. This gentleman here. Oh God, everyone's so tall.
My name is Leon. I'd like to know, how did you feel when the New Day broke your record for the longest reigning tag team championships?
How did you feel when the New Day broke the record as longest reigning tag team champions?
Well, we respect the New Day, but the record lasted for I don't know how many years. And there again, it wasn't the New Day, it was Vince.
Yeah.
We're right. Yeah, sorry guys, what I'm going to ask then, you mentioned then about the masks. So from masks to face paints. Going back to Survivor Series 90, there were 8 people in the match, 7 of which were wearing face paint with yourselves, and also Legion of Doom, and the Ultimate Warrior as well. So many big personalities in that match. What was that like?
Was Hulk in that match too, or no?
No. The Warriors versus the Perfect Team.
Oh yeah.
Well, that was a good match. That was Barry's got a good story about something similar to that, but it was involving Jake Roberts. But yeah, when you think back at the time, there was quite a few individuals that had paint, but everyone was easily recognized because of the difference.
And what was hard is, in that ring, everybody had different personalities. And they were all different people that we all kind of worked the same, but worked differently. And it ended up working out really good. And going into it, we didn't really know what was going to happen, but it ended up working out really good. But a quick story, we were tagged up with Jake the Snake and Hulk. We were in the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago. And who'd we go against? That was, I don't know who was the other team. But anyways,
Zeus.
Yeah, Zeus, and was it the Road Warriors? Anyways, so we go in the dressing room, and Jake says, "I got this snake. It's the greatest snake that I've ever had." So we walk into the dressing room, you go in the shower, and this snake was about as long as this ring. And it was about this big around. And you walked in there, and that snake would just get up and look at you like, And we're like, there ain't no way. And Hulk walks in, and he said, "Well, let's try to pick it up." So we picked this thing up. And I mean, it was moving us everywhere. And Hulk says, "There ain't a chance we're taking that snake out to the ring." So we put it back in there. Jake had a smaller snake that he brought out to the ring. Everything went okay. The matches, the whole night was over with. We all left. Well, they had that big snake in a bag on the chair or something, and somebody forgot to grab it. it got out of the bag and crawled up and was in the ceiling of the Rosemont Horizon for like a week. And a janitor all of a sudden was up there doing something with the lights and seeing that snake, he about had a heart attack. So.
Yeah, but they got rid of all the rats.
Yes, they got rid of all the rats.
Any questions for Demolition? If not, I've got a self-indulgent one. May I? May I throw one in? Because you guys kind of were thrown together initially. Was there a moment when you just had that, this is going to be something special, this is going to be magical? Was there a specific moment you thought to yourself, this is going to be great?
Well, I knew the we had met. We met up in Charlotte. But even with the previous gentleman, Randy, the reaction was so positive. I knew it was going to work. I just knew it wasn't going to work because they recognized him. When he went to the ring, they started yelling, Moondog, Moondog. But the reaction of the team was positive. After the first match or two, no more than the second match, I knew it was going to work.
Yeah, and I was a Masked Superstar fan forever watching him. I knew he was one of the best wrestlers in the whole business, and I knew if I tagged up with him, it was only going to help me, and I knew it was going to go. Because the first time in the ring, it was like we didn't even have to talk or anything. We just looked at each other, and we knew what we were going to do. And that was just kind of the start of, this is going to be good. There was no clashing, you know, I didn't want to be better than him, or he didn't want to be better than me. It was just what was ever the best for the team. So you knew right away it was going to be good.
And also, speaking of things that are very, very good, Barry, you also happen to have appeared in the greatest wrestling video game ever, which is WWF WrestleFest. Do you get any say in that, or how did that exactly come about?
I didn't have any say about it, but when we first got together, a guy from Toronto, Canada came up to me and said, hey, do you want to be in a video game? And I said, well, yeah, what are we going to do? And this was before any of those were out. So, yeah, it was a pinball machine. So I told Bill, I said, hey, we got this guy here, introduce him to him and everything. So I went and talked to Vince, and I said, hey, Vince, I got a guy up in Canada that wants to do a video game of us. Can we do that? He goes, no, you can't do that. I was like, holy shit, you know? So anyways, it ended up being where Hulk was in a video game, and then, you know, whoever else, and then finally we got into the game. And no, there's no say. You know, now Hulk probably had say, but I did, or Bill never did.
Doing grand. Anyone else? Anybody? Oh, everyone's gone shy. They're intimidated. Here we are. So it's definitely you this time. Go ahead, my friend.
We spoke about the Royal Rumble. Who was it who booked that, and how did you feel that you two were going 1 and 2? Did you relish it, or did you think, oh no?
Did we what?
Number 1 and number 2 in the Rumble. Who booked it, and how did you feel about it?
Well, you want to go ahead first?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, well, the office booked it, Pat Patterson. He's the one that came up with that. We didn't know what position we were going to go out there. So when we were all in the back, all of a sudden the music started and it was Axe. I was kind of like, ha, 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 you know, he's at the beginning. Maybe I'll wait till I'm about number 20, you know. Well, then when the second person came up, it hit the music again. It was like, holy cow, that's me. We didn't even know what to do. So it was a secret to us, the 1 and 2. But thank God, Andre came in 3, so I didn't have him hit me anymore, you know?
Yeah, that's the first time that both of us looked across the ring and was happy and smiling when Andre came in.
Question over here. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thanks again, guys, for the memories. Just a quick one for you. Did you have a preference back in the day? Did you prefer live TV or house shows to perform?
I always preferred the house shows because you had more control of the crowd. Television is television. There's a lot of pressure on you. You've got a time constraint that you have to live up to. You know, if you're having a good show in the house and you got the people behind you or involved, you could go an hour, you could go 90 minutes. 25 minutes, whatever. On television, you got 5, 6, or 7. You got to get all your stuff in. So I like the house shows.
Yeah, and we really took pride in our matches. So when we were in the ring, you know, for a house show and it was 30 minutes or 35 minutes, we could really tell our story and get the fans so revved up. When we got back to the dressing room, it was like, God, what a great match. You know, what do we got to do for the next one? And for the TV matches, it was almost like you just go out there and just do your thing, and that was the end of it. It wasn't enjoyable. And you had to have good commentators to tell the story of what you're doing in there instead of us telling the story. So the house shows were a lot better for me, too.
Oh, we have a niche question, and I'm all for it. What's your name, my friend?
Phil. There's so many iconic views of Demolition, and you both are single wrestlers. But I just wanted to ask, Barry, can you tell us any stories about the aftermath of the King to the Road match?
It's a question about the King of the Road match and what happened afterwards. Is everyone familiar with the King of the Road match? Take it away, sir.
Yeah, I was the blacktop bully at the time, and that was my second favorite gimmick I ever had. And they were really giving it a big push. So I had a truck match with Dustin Rhodes, and they told us pretty much everything we had to do. And there was helicopters and trucks following us. I mean, it was a pretty exciting match. And it ended up being where both of us were bleeding pretty bad. And at the end of the match, I went home. The next morning, Eric Bischoff called me up. He says, Barry, what a hell of a match you guys had. He says, but I got some good news and some bad news. And I said, well, you know, what's the good news? He goes, it was a hell of a match. I said, what's the bad news? He says, you're fired. I said, fired for having the best match I've ever had? He says, yeah, you weren't supposed to have any blood in that match at all. And I said, well, we were told to have blood in that match. So it ended up being where Dustin Rhodes got fired, I got fired, Mike Graham got fired, and somebody else got fired. So Eric Bischoff, he said, I'm really sorry, but he says, I'm going to hire you back. He said, just please don't, you know, cause a stink or anything. So it ended up being where he hired me back a year later, but that gimmick just went away from that, and I really enjoyed that Blacktop Bully gimmick. So that's kind of the story.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, without doubt, one of the greatest ever tag teams to enter a wrestling ring, and a complete fact, the longest ever reigning WWF tag team champions of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the one, the only Demolition!
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.